All right, we're going to begin today's policy session of the Phoenix City Council for March 21st, 2017. We have a few very important budgetary items that'll be the agenda items, but we'll begin today's meeting with council information and follow-up requests. So I'll turn first to the council members, but first let me say to Councilwoman Deborah Stark, congratulations. Week ago today, you won an overwhelming victory to remain on the City Council. Congratulations. I know you have done an outstanding job and will continue an outstanding job, and very much just want to offer my personal congratulations. All right, so now. I think we're going to have a swearing-in ceremony later on this week to make it all official, and you have the opportunity to say a few words about your vision for the next few years and beyond in District 3 in the city. All right, now turn to members of the council for any other information or follow-up requests. Any councilman would like to speak? Councilman Williams, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I am delighted to report that Shingle Mountain finally has an agreement. They have 18 months. It will be removed from the site, and I want to thank all of the staff that participated for the last year and a half to make this happen. They did a great job, and I'm very thankful that Shingle Mountain is coming down. We have a new factory going in. I attended the groundbreaking at the Patriot Ordnance Factory, and they manufacture guns for the military and for police agencies, for law enforcement. And it is a very large 30,000 square foot, I think, building. So I'm very delighted that that's going up north of Deer Valley Road. I attended the ribbon cutting for the Phoenix Conservatory of Music at Metro Center. They have a new space. It is very impressive. If on a Saturday morning you have nothing to do, go over to the second story near the Sears building and watch the number of kids that are in there that not only are learning how to play instruments, but they actually have a sound and recording studio. They have some of their own original songs there. They're all very engaged, and several of the students have gone on to college majoring in music, so they're a very great success story. And I want to congratulate the Boys and Girls Club on their annual fundraising event. It was very interesting. It was amazing when you saw someone bid $180,000 cash for one of the gifts that was offered.
Wow.
I've never been that fortunate on all the fundraisers I've had for different organizations to have that type of participation or the audience, but it was a great event and they did a tremendous job. Want to remind everybody this Friday morning is our District 1 breakfast. Ed Zucker will be there. He's going to be talking about the budget. And then on April 8th, we have an event. We have a bike safety event at Tumbleweed Elementary School, and we are coordinating that with the Tumbleweed PTA Spring Carnival and the Cactus Park West Neighborhood Association. So you can come, learn about bike safety, get a free bike helmet, and attend the Spring Festival and be part of the drawing for a brand new bike. So I want to invite everybody to come. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman. Other members of the City Council? Councilwoman Stark.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, on March 4th, the Desert Horizon Police Precinct had a fundraiser for Special Olympics at the Desert Horizon Precinct Park. It was wonderful. It was well attended and lots of money was raised. And then on March 9th, along with Councilwoman Gallegos, we hosted a Build Your Future Construction Apprentice Forum at the Burton Bar Central Library. It was very well attended, very well attended. Exciting dialogue about how we can build our future, and especially in the area of trades. And then on March 9th, we had a light rail security meeting, and that was hosted by District 5 as well, and a lively discussion about increased security plans along 19th Avenue and the light rail corridor. Then upcoming it's just a couple days away, March 23rd. Several neighborhood groups have been meeting with the planning department on group facilities, group care homes. They're having another community meeting at, I believe, 6 o'clock at City Hall. And hopefully, if anyone's interested in that, you do attend that. I think that's an important issue for our neighborhoods. And we have some bike safety events coming up as well. March 25th, the Tour de Sunny Slope, and that will be a 5-mile bike ride along within the Sunny Slope area, and there'll be a block party and a community gathering at the North Mountain Brewery afterwards. And then on April 15th, North 32nd Street will be hosting a bike safety event. And then April 29th, John Jacobs will also be hosting a bike safety event. We're pretty excited about all those. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman. Councilman Waring?
Thank you. We're hosting 2 budget meetings in April, and it occurred to me we're getting close to the last meeting before then, so I figured I'd announce them right now. The first is with Thelda Williams. We're co-hosting at the Community Center at 3435 West Pinnacle Peak Road. It is at 6 p.m., so I hope everybody can turn out for that. If you can't go to that one, I'm hosting one with Deborah Stark, so District 2 and District 3, at the Paradise Valley Community Center, which is north of Bell on the west side of 40th Street, just north of the high school. The address is 17402 North 40th Street, and also at 6 p.m. They start off with a video and discuss the budget. So we have a council meeting that afternoon, but we should be there in time. But if we're not, they'll start the video, and then we'll be there shortly. So, we appreciate if everybody can come out to attend that and give their budget thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman Waring. Any other council members? Councilman DeCiccio, please.
Quite a few things. Oh, quite a few things going on. There we go. Got the mic working. One, it's been a pretty active going into summer event. Everyone thinks about the school break for kids. It hasn't been that way with us, at least. We've had our district's had. I think we're going into our 6th neighborhood meeting tonight in about 2 weeks, and the first 5 we've had about 750 people attend. It's amazing how many people we've got turning out to these events. It's incredible, actually. It just tells you how motivated people are, how interested people are. One of the big issues dealt with roads. They talked about pension reform. I mean, there's a variety of issues that come up at these meetings. But we're expecting close to 200 people at the event tonight, too. So it's been really good. The one tonight, it's on roof rats. We're holding hearings in the district on roof rats. Many of us may know an individual by the name of Barry Paisley. Barry is an incredibly great guy. We're good friends. He's on the village planning committee. We also ran against each other. I think 6 years ago, back in 2009 is when Barry and I ran against each other for this seat. And since then, we've turned out to be really good friends. But he has an incredible show, a presentation on roof rats, because they're, depending on where you live in the city of Phoenix, will determine how affected you are by roof rats. Some areas are getting just inundated with them, and other places aren't. But I want to be very clear. The city of Phoenix has no say whatsoever over roof rats. We're only trying to help. But Barry's put together this 24-page presentation that he puts out, and it has just a huge following. So if anyone has any issues or any concerns in your neighborhood, let me know. We will get this document to you, and it will lay out step by step of the things that you need to do, and it'll tell you a little bit about how you have to deal with it. We had a situation at my house about 2 years ago, and Barry came over and gave me some ideas. We took care of it. Boom, it was gone. It was very simple things that you can do to take care of. You have to be a little bit handy around the house, but other than that, you don't have to be. It's not too complicated. The other deals with Shemer. The Shemer Center in my district, which is in Arcadia again. They show exhibits from seniors, from high school students, and then they bring this collection over to the Phoenix City Hall. And some of this work is outstanding. So the work that Shemer's put together, the work that these students have put together, you need to come by and take a look at it. It's over at Phoenix City Hall, and it's on display between Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The other is, and I'm very proud of this, I want to give a really big shout out to Nick Capolini in my office. He did an incredible amount of work on this, but Phoenix Sister Cities, generally every year, not generally, but every year, they get together and put together their ambassadors, and there are 26 ambassadors that are assigned to all these different cities around the world. Of the 26 ambassadors, and again, this is a shout out to Nick, 12 of those individuals came from my district for the city of Phoenix. Yeah, I feel pretty proud about it, and these kids are just outstanding. If you look at their resumes, it gives us a lot of hope of what's coming our way. These individuals are going to be taking over sooner or later when we, end up moving things on and passing the gavel on. And it just tells me a lot about what's happening with our youth, how active they are, how involved they are, how much they care about their community. Very proud of these 12 kids. The other, just like the bike safety, we have a bike safety event on April 2nd at Papago Park. I like the idea that we're doing this because more and more kids are coming out. We've also tied it to a 5K run. For people my age, we like to do a 5K walk, if we can make it. But it should be a really good event. It's going to be April 2nd at Papago Park on Galvin Parkway, and we're going to be providing free bike helmets. I want to give a shout out to Councilman Nowakowski for giving me the idea on the bike helmets. His office said, hey, look, why don't we combine these events? Why don't you look at doing the bike safety to the fire department in the back there too, who provide the bike helmets. It's a really good event to go to, and it's really great to see how many kids and families come out to these things. It's outstanding. The last deals with the budget hearings, and we're trying something a little bit different. We got actually 2 budget hearings in the same day, one in the south and then one in the north. The first one's going to be at 8:30 at the Pecos Community Center, which is also the senior center. The reason we're doing that one in the morning is just to try something a little different. One of the complaints that I got from seniors in the past was that, starting a meeting late at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, one, they had difficulty driving there, difficulty seeing, and so we just really didn't get that many seniors there. So we're looking at doing an earlier one just to see what kind of turnout we might be able to get from the senior community. It's just kind of a test to try it out. And then at 6 o'clock that night at Madison School District, we're going to be holding our second budget hearing. So we're going to have 2 in a day. I want to thank the staff for bearing with that, but it's one that I think I'd like to try to do something a little different to see if we can increase turnout amongst people, these budget hearings. Sometimes we, generally we'll get 50 people in the room, and 47 of those are Phoenix staffers, and then we'll get 3 from the public. It's just a way of trying to find a way to boost turnout, just trying different ideas, and doing it at a senior center when seniors are there might be helpful. And it's nice to be able to hear from people that have a lot of experience in the world, what they think ought to be happening and what their concerns are too. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Councilman Nowakowski.
Thank you, Mayor. Good news for Estrella Mountain. We have a new playground out at Sunridge Park right off of 62 Avenue and Roosevelt. People were asking for a new playground. We finally got it. People are excited, and thank you for Phoenix Parks and Rec for making that happen. I'm also excited about the Final Four main events being in downtown Phoenix and the Margaret Hans Park. You should, if you have a chance to look up phoenix.gov Final Four. There's all kinds of activities for the family, things for children, for adults. You just got to participate. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience here in Phoenix, right there in Margaret Hans Park, our convention center. It's just amazing. So come on down to District 7, come on down to District 8 also, and enjoy all the wonderful activities for the Final Four. Also, just want to remind individuals that if you want to be a part of the men and women in uniform that protect and serve the city of Phoenix, we're recruiting police officers, and we have our next written exam on April 14th. So if you want more information, you can just visit phoenix.gov police and look up your application and come on and be one of the few and the proud of the City of Phoenix Police Department. Also, if you're behind on doing your taxes, well, we have a program for free tax preparation and filing services. There's different locations throughout the City of Phoenix, and once again, you can look at on our phoenix.gov human services and find those different locations throughout the City of Phoenix. And it's a great service for individuals that can't afford to get their taxes done. We provide those services for y'all. We have the budget hearings. You can look up on my Facebook on all the different budget hearings we have in the district. Also, I want to thank Arizona at Work. They had an outreach program today, finding jobs for veterans. So I just really want to thank all those employers that were a part of that, and how you're reaching out to our veterans and making sure that they're taken care of. You know, they took care of us, so now it's time for us to take care of them. And also, I want to thank the mayor and Mr. Tripkin for having a great reception with all those individuals that help out and contribute to the CAS Center, the homeless shelter in downtown Phoenix. A lot of love in the room and a lot of great services that they provide. And if you haven't had a chance to take a tour, you should come down, and I encourage my colleagues to really look at the different services, from medical, dental, to all the different services that they provide for our homeless community that's out there. Also, I want to thank all those businesses out there in the Maryville area. They had Nuestro Business Awards. They went out to Latino businesses out there. There was 8 Latino businesses that received that Nuestro Business Award, and congratulations to all those individuals that received it. And also, I want to thank the Parks and Rec for what a great ceremony of life. We had a young lady that passed away, Lou Rodriguez, that really served the city of Phoenix for about 23 years in the Parks and Rec department. And just to see our staff come together and give such a beautiful service about 2 weeks ago, the music, the testimonies, the young people that she touched their hearts and souls, and how one individual can have such a big impact, not just within the Washington Rec Center, but also throughout South Phoenix through the Latino Institute that she helped create, and she emceed the programs for so many years, and all the individuals that she touched. And St. Mary's Basilica was just jam-packed. It's a testimony of everything that Lou Rodriguez has done for the city of Phoenix, and also a legacy that she left behind through all of us. And my thoughts and prayers and go out to Esther and all those individuals that loved her and cared for her and took care of her. So once again, our thoughts and prayers out there to all of our staff members in the Parks and Rec, and especially to you, Esther. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Other members of the council? Councilman Gallego?
Thank you. Spring has been busy in District 8 since our last policy meeting. We participated in the grand opening of the Biosciences Partnership Building in partnership with U of A and others. So thank you to CED and the departments that worked on that project, a real testament to earlier council's vision for investing in bioscience and continued success with that partnership. Congratulations to the folks behind Art Detour and our art department. They had a great couple days of really showing off how talented our arts community is, and I got to visit a few sites, including the intersection in the A.E. England building, which was a great project, and building on past success that we've had in that area. We also opened up new playground equipment at Alkire Park, and thank you to the Parks Department for working with Phoenix Elementary School District and others to make that a great success. I got to attend the Arizona Celtic Music Festival, where I got a plaque. I was telling Council or Vice Mayor Pastor, they congratulated me as former Vice Mayor Gallego. So now I know where I stand in things. We got to join Mayor Stanton in visiting the Gila River Indian community, and got great national recognition from the Bureau of Reclamation for our partnership to ensure sustainable water future. So thank you to Catherine Sorensen, Mayor Stanton, and others who worked on that very important project. It was nice to get positive national attention for our long-term planning and how that really separates us from some of our neighbors in terms of working together collaboratively, although we have a lot more work to do on Colorado River issues and others, but a good foundation here. And I got congratulations from the Bureau and folks in DC about the work that we are doing here. We were also glad to participate in the Be a Leader Shadow program and see that there are so many dynamic young leaders in our community who we can look forward to having them in charge. In terms of moving forward, I'm looking forward to several meetings in Levine with Councilman Nowakowski, including a joint budget hearing on April 12th. We'll also join with Councilwoman Pastor at PCH on April 5th. We are doing our morning budget hearing with seniors at Senior Opportunities West, so another opportunity for folks who don't want to drive at night. And achieving one of our goals with our age-friendly communities, which was to have accessibility for seniors and hearings and meetings at places and times that are convenient for our senior citizens. And I'll also be joining Mayor Stanton and others at a citywide budget hearing in District 8 at First Institutional. So all of the evening events are at 6 and the morning event is at 8:30. The Housing Department is hosting a Choice Neighborhoods meeting on March 27th at Edison Elementary School. And we are looking forward to continued good activity from the Final Four. They've had several legacy projects in District 8, including with our Humane Society, already been at Harmon Park, and will be back on the 28th for a new basketball court, which celebrates the many great athletes that our community and our Parks Department have produced. We're looking forward to seeing if we're going to have, I think the last time they were there, the mayor was showing off his free throw shooting skills, so we'll look forward to seeing what's in store for March 28th. He's smiling, so I don't know what that means, but we'll look forward to reporting back. I also wanted to congratulate the Phoenix Hispanic Network and Brenda Yanez, who won awards at the Metro Phoenix Women in Transportation Awards. It's great to be out in the community and see our employees recognized. Thank you.
Thank you very much, former Vice Mayor. Any other members of the council? Councilman Valenzuela?
Thanks, Mayor. Well, I have also a few announcements. I'm excited about the 2017 Arizona Tech Innovation Summit on Thursday, the 23rd. It's always exciting to be there. You'll have lots of innovators from around the state coming together. This one's at Monte Lucia. Recently, we had a really great, successful, Phoenix Startup Week a couple weeks ago. So this is just another event to kind of keep us in the light there. So it's good stuff. I'm also very excited, and my team and I are very excited to be joining the Helen Drake Senior Center this Friday. Helen Drake Senior Center is on 27th Avenue, just south of Northern, near Station 30, Fire Station 30. And we always have a good time there, but the entire team will be there, spending some time answering questions and just having a good time. And we've had that date circled on the calendar for a while now, so we're excited to go out there and have a good time. I want to share that, and I know a lot of my colleagues also did this, but we recently filmed a PSA for national service. And I'm really, really proud of the team that I work with every day, my council team and this team. But I'm speaking of my council team. I know my Chief of Staff, Tony Mottola, is here, and we were giving him a hard time because he's the slacker who is not the AmeriCorps alum, and I'm not either, so we're both slackers, Tony. But there I am doing this PSA with 3 of the 4 members of my team, and 2 are AmeriCorps alum, in Mia Sanchez and Vanya Guevara, and also to my left in this PSA was Jake Swanson, who is a current member of the AmeriCorps Vista program. And so we certainly believe in public service, and I'm just really proud of this team that we have here working for District 5 and for Phoenix every day. Recently, I had the opportunity to be principal for the day at Tomahawk Elementary School in Maryville, and I shadowed Principal Bond, this amazing educator, this amazing person, and she's just an amazing person. We're just so fortunate to have Principal Bond at Tomahawk Elementary, and to watch her go about her day. I mean, she was so encouraging, even when she had to help correct one of our students' behavior, just the way she handled herself, and she's certainly led by example, and you can just tell that this person just truly cares about every student, every parent. And so we're just so fortunate to have people like Principal Bond. And so yesterday I had an opportunity to speak at the Principal for a Day luncheon, which was at Grand Canyon University in District 5. And this is where all of the participants came together for this appreciation luncheon. And so we had all of these great leaders from all over the valley come together and who took part. And so we just, it's a great opportunity to see what our educators are doing every day and just to further our appreciation for educators. So, Vice Mayor, Pastor, thank you for all of your service in the education arena. It certainly is the most important job as far as I'm concerned. So, let me see, what else do I have here? I also would like to invite people to a District 5 park. So recently, this is about a week and a half or so ago, we cut the ribbon on this challenge course at Washington Park. So near 23rd Avenue, south of Glendale. It's south of Washington High School. So for those who are watching and those in the audience, you probably have seen the Ninja Warrior show. This is the show with all of the obstacles, and people run through this, and some can make it under time and some can't, but everyone is challenged. Well, Inger Erickson, our Parks and Recs director, and I, and several others from the city of Phoenix, we were able to watch of course, every ribbon cutting that I've taken part in District 5, we always let our kids do it, our youth do it, but we're able to watch our kids cut the ribbon on this Ninja Warrior course, and so we would like to thank not only the city of Phoenix and their Parks and Rec staff, and Inger, thank you so much for just being so creative and for pushing your team to be competitive in this grant process. But we'd like to thank the Fiesta Bowl Foundation. We competed for this grant. It was a $100,000 grant, and this is the first Ninja Warrior course in the state of Arizona. There are very few in the country, but the first in the state of Arizona, and it's in a really great location at Washington Park. It is open to the public, and so it's been almost 2 weeks, because I know a couple of weekends have passed, and I have been there each of the last 2 weekends with my family, and it's the kids love it, and so and we're never alone. So lots of kids from the neighborhood, they're doing it. It's just another opportunity to stay active. Our parks department really stepped up here, and it is part of the Fit Phoenix program. It's just the opportunity to help encourage people to live healthier, safer lives. We love our basketball courts. We love our swimming pools. We love our walking trails. But anytime you can bring something new into the community and a new challenge into the community is something we can talk about and hopefully promote. And we want people from all over the city to come out and take part and enjoy it. It's actually a very good time. It's right next to the Phoenix Tennis Center, which is in right there at Washington Park in District 5. So if you haven't had a chance, come out. You'll enjoy it. It is on AstroTurf, so you won't you may not hurt yourself, and that includes the mayor. You may not just put maybe a mask so you don't hurt you won't break your nose on this one, Mayor. I'm not going to promise, but
Appreciate the gratuitous nose-breaking reference.
that was. But yeah, and I would encourage everyone to come out and have a good time. Maybe we should all, soon it'll be hooked up to an app. You'll be able to download an app. You'll be able to keep the track of your time and compete with other people throughout the city as well. So that's it. Thank you so much for the opportunity to give these announcements.
Thank you very much, Councilman Valenzuela. Vice Mayor?
Hello. We have lots of activities happening within District 4, and as I refer District 4 as the heart of the city, we will be rocking District 4. And so Lost Lake Festival will be held October 20th through the 22nd at Indian Still Park, which it's going to be very exciting to see and watch it happen. It'll include music, art, food, and culture. It's incorporating the community around there, and also what's most importantly is the culture around District 4. So looking forward to that event. This morning I had a fun event at Brett Tarver's Elementary. I was teaching along with my daughter and all my staff water lessons, and I was doing the water cycle this morning, and so it was a kickoff to April's water awareness, and it was very exciting to see young kids being involved and being active, because the activities were engaging and it used all the 5 senses. And then this Sunday is the Encanto Palmcroft Home Tour and Street Fair, so looking forward to everybody being there. And the other exciting busy weekend that we will be having is that San Francisco Mayor Lee and his many departments will be here looking at the city of Phoenix. We will be highlighting the new solid waste equipment operators apprenticeship program, and it is nice to be recognized and having a mayor coming to visit the apprenticeship program. 19th and Avenue in Camelback, we will be having a community meeting regarding the Solano corridor, Monday, March 27th at 6:30 at Park Lee. I will also be having a cleanup, so you see how active we are. Support Sky Harbor Neighborhood Cleanup at Alta Butler Elementary, April 1st. If you want to come help us, that'll be great. It will be kicking off at 8 in the morning. And then March 25th, where all of us will be, is the Pride Run Saturday. It's a half a marathon and a 5K from uptown to downtown. And then we have the Pride Festival and Parade April 1st and 2nd at Steele Park and Central Avenue. You have heard about the upcoming budget hearings. I will start off Tuesday, April 4th at Indiansdale Park, Wednesday, April 5th with Councilwoman Gallego at Phoenix Children's Hospital, Tuesday, April 11th at Encanto Park Clubhouse with Councilman Nowakowski. Tuesday, April 18th, we will have at the Maryville Community Center, a bilingual budget hearing with Councilman Valenzuela and Councilman Nowakowski. And then Wednesday, April 19th, will be Metro Tech High School having a budget hearing with the youth. So I expect I cover everybody. My other colleagues have covered the seniors, our senior population, and so I think we all collectively have hit every population possible. And then finally, I do want to congratulate, as I will say it, Councilwoman Stark, smile wearing, thank you. Really appreciate all the hard work that you did and everything that we all engaged in to help you get elected. So congratulations, it turned out great. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Vice Mayor. Now we'll move on with the agenda for our policy session. Next on the agenda is a consent agenda. Vice Mayor, do we have a motion on a consent agenda?
Yes, I move the consent agenda of 2017 campaign information policy.
We have a motion on the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions on that item? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Is there a call for an executive session?
Yes, Mayor. Mayor, in accordance to the properly posted notice and agenda, I move that the City Council, pursuant to Arizona Revised Statutes, Section 38-431.02.a, meet in executive session on Tuesday, April 11th, 2017 at 1 p.m. in the East Conference Room, 12th floor of the Phoenix City Hall, 200 West Washington Street, Phoenix, Arizona.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Next on our agenda I'll turn to City Manager first. I know we're going to be talking about significant budget items today. Any other items you'd like to present for this council or the public? All right, next on the agenda then is item number 2. Item number 2 is the preliminary 5-year capital improvement program. Our professional staff and budget office regularly presents us their long-term planning for our capital budget. This is for information discussion, not an action item here today, so it's really to inform this council and the public about the proposed 5-year capital improvement program. I'll hand it over to City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Mayor, as you said, the capital improvement program, or what we call a CIP, is a long-term 5-year view of the city's commitment to funding capital projects. Those are the big long-term things we do to maintain community infrastructure, enhance public safety, promote sustainability and an assured water supply, and create and sustain private sector jobs in design, fabrication, and construction. As you noted, Mayor, this is an informational presentation. It starts a series that concludes in May and June. The CIP, which is contained in the packet and is also available online at phoenix.gov, is for review and comment. And as we've done for the past 3 years, City Council subcommittees have been reviewing individual pieces of the CIP since December. Finally, I'd add that last year the council approved floating the property tax rate to ensure we meet our general obligation bond debt service commitment. And I'm pleased to tell you today that because of your leadership in sustaining our strong credit rating and because there is a strong economy, we are able to recommend floating the rate down next year. So here today is Budget and Research Director Jeff Barton, our Capital Program Manager Chris Fazio, and Chief Financial Officer Denise Olson, who will now present the CIP and overview. Jeff?
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the council. As Ed mentioned and as the mayor alluded to, this presentation is strictly for information purposes only. The intent is to give you a very detailed overview of the preliminary CIP as it currently stands. Our CIP, as you know, is our capital improvement program, and it spans 5 fiscal years. So that's fiscal year 17-18 through 21-22. As it's currently presented, it represents a $4.6 billion program, of which $1.3 billion is funding year 1, so fiscal year 17-18. It also reflects, over the course of those 5 fiscal years, 622 total projects. And it's important to mention that the CIP as it's currently presented and incorporated reflects significant leveraging of both state and federal funding. And finally, I'd like to add that the CIP also creates and sustains a significant number of jobs. According to its most recent study, the Council of Economic Advisors suggested that for every $1 billion in highway financing and dollars that go towards highway financing, it creates roughly 13,000 jobs. So anecdotally, you could see the impact that our CIP is going to have on jobs for the local economy. With that being said, I'm going to turn it over now to Chris Fazio, who is our CIP coordinator, and he will walk you through more detailed analysis of the individual capital program.
Good afternoon, mayors and member of the council. This slide illustrates the 5-year CIP by program. And the CIP fundamentally is an infrastructure-driven plan, and that's what you see here. The emphasis on spending is on water delivery, airports, streets, and wastewater infrastructure. Looking at the CIP by, looking at the CIP by funding source, the CIP is almost exclusively funded by operating and capital special revenue funds. GEO bond funds and the general fund combined are only about 1% of the CIP budget. CIP projects address economic development, infrastructure enhancement, and sustainability. By way of example, a $210 million investment in new and improved major streets and bridges fosters economic development by providing transportation connectivity. At Sky Harbor Airport, construction of the SkyTrain Stage 2 will ensure that the airport is able to support the estimated 82,000 ground transportation passengers we expect to see by 2022. And construction of a new concourse at Terminal 4 will lead to an expanded presence of Southwest Airlines at the airport. The city maintains nearly 7,000 miles of water mains, and this CIP allows for the replacement of 28 miles of those water mains per year to maintain existing service levels. Street repairs and modernization target pavement repairs at approximately 1,500 miles of our streets to ensure the safety and durability of our roadways. And regional flood control projects, such as the Durango Regional Conveyance Channel and a $10 million investment in local drainage, mitigates risks of flooding to our residents. Finally, CIP projects such as the Resource Innovation Campus that you see here support sustainability. The Resource Innovation Campus features land leases at attractive rates that allow companies to divert materials from existing waste and recycling streams and essentially creates a circular economy. Under the Transportation 2050 plan, the city committed to construct 135 miles of sidewalks and over 1,000 miles of bikeways. And the street transportation CIP, that's a component of this, invests towards that goal. Finally, in our desert climate, water resiliency projects will store 40,000 acre-feet of water per year to hedge against shortages and droughts through surface water reservoir storage and storage in underground aquifers. With that, I'll turn the presentation over to our Chief Financial Officer, who will provide an update on GEO bond programs.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. So as you know, our GEO bonds are voter approved and they're used to fund projects throughout the city. The debt service, which includes principal and interest, is paid for using the secondary property tax. So I just want to give you a status update of our GEO bond program. So in 2001 and in 2006, the voters approved bonds of $1.6 billion for city projects. Of that amount, $151 million was deferred per council action due to a recession. We've also had about $9 million that we've earned on interest or have earned interest on for the fund balance, and we have been able to use that money to also fund projects. So the total sources is $1.49 billion. Now, most of that through last fiscal year has been spent. And I want to point out that in 2016-17, which is this year's budget, there is $11.4 million of projects which have been deferred and have been carried forward year after year. And the main reason for that is because we don't have capacity in the general fund to support operations. There's also an additional $13.8 million, and this is available resources that have accumulated over time due to interest and also project savings. The preliminary CIP reflects the programming of these funds for projects. So, staying true to the original bond program approved by the voters, staff is recommending projects for fire expansion, modernization, and also life safety. Specifically, the first project is $800,000, and this is for Fire Station 20, which is located on the north side of Glendale Avenue, just west of 7th Avenue, and requires expansion and replacement to accommodate service needs. We are proposing the acquisition of a parking lot for access and station expansion. Next is $8 million for the Fire Computer-Aided Dispatch System. This captures and manages all information related to receiving and dispatching emergency calls for service. The city's current system is 20 years old and is obsolete, and so staff is recommending replacement to ensure continuity of operations. Half of this project is, half of this project is going to be funded by partner agencies, and the rest will be funded using GEO bonds from the city of Phoenix. Last, we have $5 million to replace the City Hall fire alarm system. This system was originally installed in 1994. And in 2006, there was an assessment done saying that this system was deficient and had reached its end of its useful life. So staff is recommending replacement of smoke alarms, fire or smoke control panels, and also related devices. So these three projects add up to the $13.8 million. And again, we do not have to issue any additional debt, and this does not impact the property tax rate. So in 2016, as was mentioned earlier in the presentation, we have a combined rate of $2.17 for our property tax rate. So again, due to the fact that we had better than anticipated appreciation in property values, and also we had a very successful refinancing of our GEO bond program last summer, we are able to now propose a combined property tax rate of $2.16. So the total levy of $253 million will be used to pay operation and maintenance costs associated with the general fund, and will also be enough to cover the cost of our debt service payments for our GEO bond program. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jeff Barton to talk about next steps.
Mayor, members of the council, the next steps in our process, and we'll discuss this a little bit in the next presentation as well. These are the formal steps that we have to take to go through legally by city's charter and state statute to adopt our budget. So as you can see, June 7th, we have our CIP resolution, as well as our tentative budget adoption, followed by, on June 21st, the final adoption of both the CIP and the operating budget, and finally, our property tax levy on July 6th. Additional information for those watching from home and in the audience can be found at phoenix.gov/budget. And that concludes our presentation, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much. Questions from members of this council about the proposed five-year CIP budget? I guess we'll be voting on that at a later time, but today's really for information. Questions, comments? Councilman Cicio?
I have a couple. What was the combined tax rate last year? $1.82?
So $1.82 through 2015-16, and starting in 2016-17, it was $2.17, and this proposes next year to float it to $2.16.
So the $1.82 to $2.17 to $2.16, we're calling that a decrease? I mean, I just want to make sure we're upfront with the public. I mean, really, it's an increase. It's an increase from last year. I mean, I just
Currently
get
it's
bothered when I hear
217, and
stuff
we're
like
proposing
this.
for next year to be 216.
Yeah, I tell you, it really bugs me to no end when we don't tell the public the exact truth. We kind of spin it a certain way. You know, I didn't mean to come that hard on it, but just when I start seeing these things and the public's already upset about the property tax increase, when we start telling them a decrease, when in fact it's really an increase from $1.82 to $2.16. That's the fact. That's what occurred here. It depends on what you want to use as a baseline. I just think we should just tell the public everything when it comes to these types of things. Just lay it out there and try, instead of trying to spin it a certain way to make, things look good when in fact they're not, when people are seeing major tax increases on their property, when the public's pretty upset about it. Just want to put my 2 cents in on that one. The other, if I could, I think it's on page 13, just a couple questions on the capital projects and why we're doing certain things. On page 13, 2 items there. We're talking about the post office. Why are we using parks and open space bonds when we ran into the same problem when the city of Phoenix wanted to take over golf courses? I assume this is the same bond program that's meant to purchase open space, meant for the parks. I don't mind the renovation of the post office, but I am concerned about using that specific bond when we went through this whole thing last time.
Mayor, Councilman DeCiccio, so I think you're referring to page 13 of the CIP, which is Schedule 7.
Right.
So one important thing to note about that is that is a listing of all the projects that were deferred in the $150 million deferral. So that actually, there is not currently the resources to spend money on that.
Okay.
The item you're talking about, ASU Post Office, $1,043,000, was contained in a Parks and Open Space bond as part of the whole civic space project, where the civic space park was built, but the funds were not fully spent by the city on the ASU Post Office. ASU has renovated that and did not need the funds, and so those funds were recommended to just be basically parked for now.
So this page here then, that's good. So this page is basically when it's deferred, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
I got it.
Councilman,
I have to-
the entirety
I
of
have to be able
Schedule
to read
7.
the very top line.
Yeah, the entirety of Schedule 7 was actually to clarify things for you. Historically, all of those deferred projects were mixed amongst all department projects.
Right.
So
No,
we
you're
tried to
right.
simplify it.
I got it. It was my error on this one. Thank you. That'll be it.
Thank you very much. Councilman, any other questions by members of this council on the proposed five-year CIP budget? All right, with that, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda. Item number 3 is the 2017-18 city manager's proposed trial budget. Each and every year, the city manager proposes a trial budget. We take that budget out to the numerous public budget hearings that has been talked about by many members of the city council. City manager will then take that input and make any proposed revisions to his proposed budget, and then ultimately the mayor and council will vote to decide the budget of the city of Phoenix for the fiscal year 2017-18. So we're on the very front end of this long process, which will have significant amount of public input, but a very important part of the process. This is the first time that we'll have the opportunity to see the city manager's proposed trial budget for 2017-18. And with that, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that explanation of what we're doing here. The trial budget, as you described, comes about after months of really diligent work by our budget and research staff and our city departments. So last month, we provided the details of a zero-based budget document. This is what it looks like. I've seen Councilwoman Williams' dog-eared copy in her office. We provided that is also available at phoenix.gov. This document represents the cost of continuing what we're doing today into next year. And so now that we have more information about revenue and expenses, we can talk about whether there are any resources to do something additional. Just to orient people, our entire budget is split about into thirds, almost equally, between the general fund, 31%, the enterprise funds, which are aviation and water. They support themselves from user fees, and special revenue funds, which are parks and preserves initiative funding, Transit 2050 funding, and planning and development services make up the other third. Last month, we discussed a 5-year forecast where we estimated 2017-18 to be about break even, and that has held true. Jeff will describe to you about $2 million of resources. And with that information that we've gotten the last month on revenues and expenses, we'll propose a first draft of a trial budget, as you described, Mayor, to review with the residents of Phoenix. What it does in this first draft is it preserves our existing city services that people have told us are really important in the areas of police, fire, parks, libraries, senior services, graffiti, streets, and other things. It allocates some resources in public safety, in homeless outreach, and in library security and youth programming. And it also prepares for the future, since we know we have to be ready for a possible deficit in 2018-19. On the non-general fund side, or the side of that, the 2/3 of the pie that was special revenue funds and enterprise funds, we reflect some important service additions there in park rangers and some new park facilities. Also, aviation is adding some things in safety and security. We have some planning and development, enhancements to keep up with the city's growth, bus route expansions, and finally some solid waste additions. I'm getting ahead of myself. And with that, the common denominator of all those efforts is providing services that make a difference to the residents of Phoenix, and Jeff Barton will describe the 3 pieces of this trial budget. Jeff?
Mayor and members of the council, we will now shift our focus away from the CIP back to the operating budget, or our trial budget. All of you up there on the dais understand this, but for those watching from home, our operating budget is the portion of our budget that serves the citizens. It's the portion that provide all those services and things that our residents have come to depend on and that they come to appreciate from this city. We will discuss the trial budget in these categories that Ed laid out that are represented in this budget, in this pie. We're going to first focus our attention on the general fund, which is about 31% of the total operating budget. But what does that mean? What does that mean to you as the council? And what does that mean to our residents? In other words, what does that look like? So let's take another look. So when we drill down on that 31%, this is what it looks like. This is how that general fund is allocated. As you can see, 44% of the general fund goes to police, 24% goes to fire, roughly 8% goes to parks, and then IT and library follow up with about 3%. And I just want to emphasize here that our IT department at 3%, it supports the entirety of the city. So that they reflect supporting the entire citywide organization. And then roughly 20% are all other departments. So as you know, by state statute and city charter, we are required to adopt a balanced budget. So what I want to do is walk you through what the current year budget balance looked like, as well as what 17-18 looks like at this current point in time. So we'll start with our resources. And as you know, our resources include the following: our beginning fund balance, so the money that we carry over from last fiscal year. It also includes all of our interest transfers that are paid by the enterprise funds for services rendered by the general fund. It also includes our revenues, and we do continue to consult with and work with the University of Arizona to hone and develop our revenue estimates. And based on the current year, you can see our revenue estimates, or our total resources, were $1.22 billion. Next year, our resources are about $56 million more than current year. And if you refer to attachment D in your council report, you can get a lot more information about the assumptions that went into our revenue projections. But next year, we're assuming revenue growth of roughly 2.9%, which means about $32 million over and above the current year's revenue estimates. As we shift our focus to the other side of our budgetary balance sheet, we look at expenditures. And again, a balanced budget, so for this fiscal year, our resources and our expenditures equal one another. Next fiscal year, based on our current projections to provide the existing services, the existing suite of services that we currently provide, as the city manager mentioned, we're estimating about $1.276 billion. So that's about $54 million more than current year expenditures. And we discussed in great detail last month about the source of that increase. It's largely driven by pension. Significant increases in both sworn pension of about $58 million and our civilian pension of about $1 million for next fiscal year in the general fund. So when you add it all up, next fiscal year, we have a small surplus of less than $2 million, roughly $1.941 million to be exact. So the trial budget proposes that we do the following with that surplus. First and foremost, making an investment in the police department to civilianize. This is something that we've heard from you and we've also heard from our residents. So we're proposing in the trial budget to add 16 new civilian positions to enhance response times in the police department. These 16 positions will be allocated across all of the police department precincts. There'll be 16 police assistant positions that will focus on doing administrative work that's currently done by police officers, such as traffic control and traffic reporting, just to name a few things. Based on our discussion with the police department and our review of the data, the impact of adding these 16 civilians will actually have the impact of adding 9 sworn police officers back to patrol. So it restores essentially an entire squad back to patrol to focus on frontline public safety work. Second, at no cost, we're proposing in the trial budget to expand homeless outreach. This is done at no cost through the elimination of 6 vacant positions in the Human Services Department. Those positions will not have any impact on existing services, and those dollars can be repurposed and reallocated to a contract with an external service provider who will make the Human Services Department a little more nimble and efficient about handling homelessness from an after-hours and weekends standpoint. And then next, library. We're, again, at no cost to the general fund. We're going to convert an existing security guard at Burton Bar to a permanent status because we see the impact and the need at that facility. And then on the other end of our library, we're actually going to take some contract dollars and reallocate and repurpose those to part-time staff. That part-time staff will be focused on youth programming, specifically in the areas of coding, STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, as well as job readiness programming. The balance of $641,000 of our surplus, we're recommending currently that we set that aside to get a head start on fiscal year 18-19. The trial budget also delivers on our commitment and your commitment to making public safety hiring a priority, specifically achieving 3,125 sworn police officers filled by the end of next fiscal year. To do that, the trial budget proposes adding 259 new police officers next fiscal year, followed by 85 in fiscal year 18-19, again, to maintain the 3,125 filled positions, as well as 90 in fiscal year 19-20. For those watching from home that may be interested in an opportunity at police, please see the link below for additional information on the recruiting process. Likewise, in fire, the trial budget also continues the commitment to maintaining and sustaining 1,615 firefighters. To do that, we plan on filling retirements that we know about next fiscal year, totaling about 39 positions, followed by 27 in 18-19 and 64 in fiscal year 19-20. I want to emphasize here that fire is still actively also pursuing additional SAFER grants. Those SAFER grants will allow the fire department to temporarily, during the duration of those grants, be significantly above the 1,615 count. And again, like on the police slide, for those interested in opportunities with fire, there's the information on the website there. So that concludes the general fund portion. Now we're going to shift our focus to the second slice of our operating budget pie, which is our special revenue fund. That represents about 34% of our operating budget. So as the city manager mentioned, these are split in roughly thirds. What does that look like? So again, public transit takes up about 35% of that piece of pie. Police and fire constitute about 19%. And that's really what we talked about last month, our public safety specialty funds, Proposition 301, Public Safety Enhancement Fund, and our Proposition 1 fund. And then housing makes up about 11%. Streets with AHER funding makes up about 6%, as well as planning at about 6%. And then neighborhood services is about 5%, and all other departments are roughly 18%. The trial budget, as it's currently presented, proposes modest increases in these areas as well. And we'll start, got a little ahead of myself. We'll start with parks. The proposed budget as it currently sits proposes $1.9 million in proposed additions utilizing the Phoenix Parks and Preserve Initiative funding. Specifically, 13 new park rangers for mountain preserves and mountain parks. 9 new park rangers for community and neighborhood parks. These 22 park rangers will increase our total existing park ranger count from 55 to 77. That's a 40% increase, and it's only 8 shy of the number of rangers parks had at the peak of the before the Great Recession. Also proposed in Parks and Recreation utilizing 3PI funding are the staff and materials required to operate 2 new dog parks located at Reach 11 and Deer Valley. We also are proposing in the trial budget some additions to planning and development. $3.3 million in proposed additions utilizing the Planning Development Fund. Specifically, 27 new positions. These new positions will address the current customer service demands, which, based on existing data, looks like they're actually starting to get close to pre-recession levels as well from a customer standpoint. This staff will focus on zoning, plan review, and other planning activities. But more importantly, these staff will provide enhanced coordination and communication between city staff, residents, and the development community. Next, in public transit, we've got additions of about $2.1 million utilizing Transportation 2050 funding. What this includes are bus route extensions and increased frequency for routes that serve some of the busiest routes in the system based on ridership. Those routes include 19th Avenue, 32nd Street, 51st Avenue, Bethany Home, Van Buren, McDowell, Thomas, Indian School, and Camelback. Next, and we shift our focus to the enterprise portion, our last slice of pie, if you will, is about 35% of the operating budget. What that looks like, roughly 40% water, 35% aviation, about 18% solid waste, roughly 6% convention center, and 1% all other departments. We're proposing $1.7 million in proposed aviation fund additions, and those will address the following areas. Funding and staff required to activate the Airport Command and Emergency Operations Center to ensure the safe, efficient, and effective operations of the entire Sky Harbor complex. Adding an additional dedicated ambulance to reduce response times at the airport. This addition actually serves a dual purpose. When not in need by the airport, it also helps augment and support Station 19, which means that we could also possibly have a positive impact on the surrounding community. And finally, staff and resources required to implement FAA's mandated Safety Management System, SMS protocol. And from what I understand, this has to do with risk management and emergency preparedness. And finally, from an enterprise standpoint, we're proposing $2.8 million in additions to solid waste to address the following areas. Number one, to establish the Solid Waste Apprenticeship Program. This is designed to ensure that solid waste has a strong pipeline of future employees. Second, expanding the Solid Waste Safety Program to ensure that our solid waste employees, both new and those coming in the future, have a sound training program to ensure that they're operating effectively and efficiently. And finally, adding 1 position to support the Reimagine Phoenix campaign and the 40% diversion by 2020 initiative. That concludes the trial budget additions. The next step in our process, as you know, many of you have alluded to in your opening remarks, are the community budget hearings. Those hearings are now scheduled to start on April 4th, and they'll conclude on April 20th. We have 17 of those hearings scheduled. This is an opportunity for our residents to engage with you, the elected officials. It's also an opportunity for them to engage with us as staff and tell us the critical things we need to know about operations and about the budget. All of these meetings will be transcribed. We will submit those minutes to you on a weekly basis. They'll also be videotaped. Those meetings will be available on the city's website as well as on the city's YouTube channel. Following this, the city manager will begin then the formal steps to the legal adoption process, and that looks like this. On May 9th, following the community budget process, we'll come back with the city manager's proposed budget, which will include a lot of that feedback that we hear as a result of the community budget hearings. 2 weeks later, again, a lot of this is dictated and based on statutes. 2 weeks later, on May 23rd, we come back with a council budget decision. Following that, on June 7th, we come back with the CIP resolution and the tentative budget adoption. Then on June 21st, we have final budget adoption. And on July 6th, we have the property tax adoption. And again, as we've mentioned in the earlier slide, the proposed property tax rate that is being presented is a $2.16 rate from $2.17. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barton. So that is the city manager's proposed trial budget, and I'll turn it over to members of the council for any questions they have for our city manager or Mr. Barton. Councilman Waring.
Thanks, Mayor. So we've talked about this before, Jeff. What is your growth estimate? I didn't see it in the packet for.
Yeah, Councilman.
An overall number, maybe I
the
missed it.
2.9% on the revenue growth.
Is the revenue growth.
Yes.
So how does that compare to other cities? Because we were way different a few years ago.
I think it's, again, I'm going off memory. I think it's in line. Again, what we're doing now, we're consulting with U of A, and we're also a partner of the state forecasting project.
Right, you've improved your process.
So, yeah, so again, we're not doing anything that's out on a limb like you've referenced in the past. So I think our numbers are fairly consistent with what everyone else is seeing.
And how much, I know we've talked about it before, a change in 1 point means what in terms of revenue?
Total general fund revenue is about $1 billion. It's $1.1 billion next fiscal year. So 1%, you're talking about $100 million, give or take. $10 million, give or take.
Yeah, 10 million, right? But you said 10 million.
10 million.
Yeah, okay. So it makes a big difference, but it's not a huge in $1 billion budget. It's only if you get out several points from where you need to be. So a downturn, if it went to zero, costs us about $30 million.
Correct.
So it should be survivable for this fiscal year. Obviously, we've discussed we have concerns for the coming year.
Correct.
Can I ask something about the process too? I had a call today. It was timely. I think I already talked about it with Councilwoman Stark. So a fellow was asking, he'd never been to a budget process, so just for folks at home. I forget, maybe you mentioned it and I missed it. Can you email comments in? Do you have to, you can email, you don't have to physically be there.
You can email them, you can call them in, and actually,
I thought so, but I wasn't 100% sure when I told you.
By the end of this week, we should have our website set up to where you can click on the link that says, we want to hear from you, and that will immediately send those comments directly to the Budget and Research Department.
Okay, so and it counts the same as the cards
Correct.
and everything, because we talked about that before.
There's also on social media, people will hashtag Phoenix Budget. We'll also collect comments that way as well. So there's email and social media opportunities.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Other members of the council? Councilman Zizio, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple things, just following up with Councilman Waring. One, I like the fact that you're using a 2.9% growth model. I think that works. It's very conservative, which means it's good for us because there shouldn't be any unexpected downturns on something like that, especially in the coming year. We're hoping at least. The Fed's been talking about doing maybe 2, maybe 3 increases in the rate. By doing that, that could slow down some economic growth in this economy significantly if there's really that many. I was kind of hoping on 1, but we'll see what happens. But when we're talking about revenues is this the highest level of revenue we've ever had at the City of Phoenix?
In actual collections, yes.
Okay.
Again, that's nominal dollars, though, Councilman. Again, the dollar today is not the same as a dollar 5 years ago.
Or 5 years from now.
Or 5 years from now.
Mm-hmm. The other is, when we're talking about the police, the 259 police officers we're going to hire, what is the attrition from that? It's close to 200, isn't it, I believe?
The schedule that you see on that you saw on that slide is the same schedule that we walked you through last month, which was the Public Safety Funds Balancing Plan. So what we've done is we've built in, police currently sits at about 2,940, so about 2,940 filled positions. So again, we're building in the known attrition, and that's a part of the hiring plan. By the end of next fiscal year, our intent is to have police at a filled count of about 3,125. So that's the net. They should net 200, so they're really going to fill probably more than that to get at that 3,125 number.
But so when we get to the 259 that we've got listed here, then, that does not include any attrition numbers, correct?
It includes the attrition that we know about. What it does not include are the folks that will leave over and above drop.
Okay.
And what I do is, again, we've talked about this before, when we have those positions, I meet with PD every quarter. We meet with PD every quarter. So when we collect those positions, we add those to the hiring plan.
So we should really net around 200 of the 259, or does that include?
No,
the
that's
two-
included
That's
in there.
everything in there.
That's everything.
That's after attrition.
Yeah.
And then, I just want to make sure, because when I see those numbers, I want to just verify that that's what it is. The other is, it's a novel idea. It's an idea I've been talking about since, I think, 2010, 2011, when we started looking at the pension problem, especially when it came to the police officers and the firefighters. Is there any thought of any additional monies being used to pay down those pension costs? You know, it's no different than any other long-term debt. You know, you can have, increasing revenues, but if your debt starts to squeeze in there, and if you don't start paying that down, well, you have multiple options of what you can do, but if your revenues are going like this, and then your debt is increasing at a higher rate, it's gonna squeeze out all the other services. And there are the only two basic ways, well, actually there are others, but there are two basic ways. One, you either pay down the debt, or you just walk away from it. The debt that we're having right now with the police officers and the firefighters, if we were to start paying some of those monies down, I called other cities, because I've been asking for this for a few years now. It is an obligation we have to pay. If we have to pay it, we should just pay it and just start writing a check to start paying that thing down. What's their unfunded, I mean, their funded ratios, what, around 35%, 36% right now? Where are they at, 42?
We're in the 40, high 40s.
45, 46%.
46?
For police and for fire, public service pensions are in the, between 45 and 50% funded.
So it's still way below what we should be at the 80% number.
Yes.
And that's at a 7.5% rate, I believe.
I believe that's their discount rate, yes.
Which, it really ought to be 5%. If it was, that number will be even lower. But that's another debate, that's another discussion. But just something to think about as we're moving forward. My guess is that this budget is in place the way it is. But if we made this commitment, in particular to police and fire, and they're the ones that we're seeing having the most struggles with their pensions, we really ought to be paying that thing down. I talked to the Mayor Chandler and Tempe. They're literally going to be writing checks on this. And they're going to try and do what, I've been trying to get us to do now for 7 years. Start writing a check and start paying that thing down. I talked to the Mayor Chandler. They were looking at close to writing a $100 million check to protect the police officers and firefighter pensions, but also to find a way to reduce that debt load, because long-term it hurts money. So, what they did, the state of Arizona did, I mean, it was marginally okay. It doesn't solve the pension problem. Basically, you're just lowering the mortgage amount is what you're doing. The mortgage years is what they did. But by doing that, it helps. It just doesn't create a real solution. We're not going to see that solution start to take effect until years later. Just something to do. The economy's booming right now. I mean, we know what happened in the Bible with the 7 years of drought and the 7 years of plenty. In the 7 years of plenty, what they started doing, they started saving their seeds. And those lessons that, our parents taught us and their parents taught them are things that we ought to be thinking about here. We're going into a stronger economy. As we're in a stronger economy, we ought to be finding better ways of starting to save for those downturns. And by saving for those downturns, that means start paying down that debt so that when an economic crisis starts to hit us, and it will, because we live in a capitalist society and we have cycles in there, and it's all built into the cycles. But once we hit that cycle, it won't be as bad, and we're going to be a lot more secure by doing that. So whether it means taking monies from the contingency fund, which it's for that, and I understand we should hit a certain rate on that or a certain percentage on that, but we've got to find ways to start paying down those pension debts. It's our obligation, and we've made a commitment to them. They've signed a contract with us. We ought to just pay it down and just start and make that part of our budget rather than adding in everything else at this point. Thanks, Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. We have a couple cards here from citizens who'd like to provide testimony to the council. First is Jerry Von Goss. Jerry, you still here? Good to see you. And then followed by Mr. Craig Tripkin.
Thank you, Mayor and council members and city manager. I got a hold of this draft last Friday afternoon, and to say I was pleasantly surprised is an understatement. This is what the voters for Parks and Preserve initiative back in 1999 and then again in 2008, this is what they voted for. This is what they wanted the money to go to. And before I continue, I know I have 2 minutes. I saw our members of our fire department out here. I want to give them a shout out. You know, our mountain parks are a crown jewel, but they're not far behind. Their expertise and dedication to their job, the rescues they have performed in the last couple weeks especially, has, you know, avoided a PR disaster for the city with the Final Four coming here. They've been called out numerous. It was convergence of, as we mentioned, spring break. The numbers of people coming here in March is always the highest of the year, plus record temperatures. Could have been an unmitigated disaster. But thanks to them, it wasn't. Not to say we're not going to get a heat wave again, but the other thing, you know, a shout out to Inger and the Parks Department. I was driving over, Thursday we have the anniversary of Lori Piestewa's death. And there's always a sunrise service at Piestewa Peak to honor her. And a lot of military, a lot of Native Americans show up. They're going to be pleasantly surprised this year because I was driving over there this morning. And just a suggestion from the Piestewa committee that puts together this function, there are now 3 signs on Lincoln designating Piestewa Peak, whereas in the past there's been nothing mentioning her name. So just thanks to the city.
Thank you very much, Mr. Von Goss. Mr. Craig Tripkin? Okay. We'll see you at lots of budget hearings, so you'll have plenty of input on this thing. All right. I have no other cards. Any other members of the council would like to provide any comments or questions? Councilman Valenzuela.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's a good place to start. And obviously, this is we're going to take it out to the public. This is an idea of what it will be. I'm very comfortable when I'm out in the public and I talk about this particular process. It's been very transparent, and we know that what we'll end up voting on is a little different than what we are going to present, and that's a good thing. We want people to feel like they're going to get their fingerprints on this particular budget, and but we do need a good place to start. The city of Phoenix is a world-class city, and for us to continue to be a world-class city, we have to continue to invest in infrastructure and education. I have lots of constituents in Central and West Phoenix who bring up the street repair that's happening right now in District 5, and I know it's not just District 5. I drive throughout the city of Phoenix and I see street repair throughout the entire city. I hear very, very few complaints, which is pretty amazing because people know just how overdue it has been, and it is. And so, you know, I think of Proposition 104, which is the initiative that is making a lot of this possible. That was a tough one for some people to support, but it was necessary. But when it's about an investment in continuing to keep Phoenix's place as a world-class city, we have to make the most with of our our dollars here. So again, investments in infrastructure and in education. I really appreciate the thought that is going into this particular budget when it comes to STEM education in our libraries. I'd like to see more, frankly, and I think what you're going to hear, certainly in the district that I am honored to represent, you're going to hear more investments in our after-school programs. You're going to hear more investments with our Parks and Recs department when it comes to education. Soon we're going to hear more about Code Phoenix as an example. So we're excited to launch that here real soon. But investments in infrastructure and education are incredibly important. Investments in public safety is incredibly important. You know, we want to be sure that our police department, our fire department are staffed at a level that is required to keep the people of Phoenix safe and to keep businesses feeling like they want to continue to invest in our city and grow in our city. And so I see some of that in this budget, and that's a good place to start. I also would like to point out that I noticed the investment in the homeless outreach, which is really important. I mean, it's incredibly important throughout the entire nation, but you know, we're seeing it more and more in our neighborhoods. It's not just the downtown core. We're seeing it literally throughout the throughout the country and throughout the state, certainly throughout the valley and throughout the city. So I would like to see a stronger investment and a stronger partnership, for an example, with CAS. Councilman Tripkin, who was here, served as a Phoenix City Council member for many years, and Councilman, you're continuing your service with CAS, and thank you for putting your time in such a meaningful, you know, within meaningful organizations such as CAS. But you know that I think you're going to hear a lot of that out in the community as well. I think people are going to talk a lot about the continued investments, and I certainly will be doing this in infrastructure, education, public safety, and really trying to do the best we can around some of these social issues that we're seeing with not just homelessness, but the things that are causing homelessness. So, so this is a good start. We have, I'm sorry, Mr. Barton, how many budget hearings?
17.
17. I know several of those are in District 5. We're partnering. I know Councilwoman Stark and I are having one, and Councilwoman Williams and I are having one, and the Vice Mayor and I. All the women.
Hey, I'm having one too.
Yeah, Councilman Nowakowski and I. But I mean, we're all working together, obviously. Let's just hold the bags, man, whatever we got to do. But, you know, we're getting some strong leadership throughout the entire council and throughout the city on this. But this is good. So 17 budget hearings. They are televised. They are archived on YouTube. I like the idea of allowing people to send their information in through social media or email or a phone call or whatever the case might be. We want everyone to feel like they're going to get their fingerprints on this budget, because once we adopt it, then that's what we go by. But so I'm excited about it. It's a good place to start, and I'm excited to see how this will continue to evolve and to see what the final product will be when we vote on it.
Thank you very much, Councilman Valenzuela. Other council members? Councilwoman Gallego?
Thank you. I joined Councilman Valenzuela in being very glad to see that we're doing additional investments on homeless outreach. That's something I hear regularly from constituents, both because they really want Phoenix to be a welcoming city that takes care of everyone within our boundaries, but also that homelessness is having an impact on people in our community, particularly those who are near certain service providers. And I think we ought to make sure that we also ask our regional partners to join us in additional investments. It is not a problem just for Phoenix, and we ought to work together with neighboring communities to address.
I'll second that.
Oh, where we have strong support for Phoenix is a partner with our neighboring communities, but we are not the social service provider for Maricopa County, and I hope others will also step up and that we can share that we're making additional investments that they will benefit from. I'm glad to see that we're going to have the police assistance. I think that will be very important. Probably one of the things I hear most is about response times and how important it is that we are one city and that we ought to have similar service throughout the city. Certainly there are some areas that are harder to police than others, but when one precinct has a 33-minute response time for priority 3 and another, Maryville Estrella, has 57 minutes, that's not good enough, and that's something that's a real top priority for me in this budget and generally. One thing I'm glad we're doing that I talked about a lot my first year on the council was looking for ways to enhance revenue that also help our community. Our blight program has been a real solid example of that, and we're going to be making, I hope, additional investments in that. But we've been able to enhance neighborhoods, get abandoned houses occupied, and bring in revenue at the same time. When we can do those type of investments, it makes sense for the taxpayers and the neighbors. And I think we should continue to look for that type of investment. It says a lot for our city when we make these type of investments that help even the most low-income neighborhoods, that we are saying everyone is welcome in the city of Phoenix and we care about all of our residents. So I hope we can do more to provide solid service throughout the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman. Any other comments? Councilman Nowakowski and then Councilwoman Stark.
Mayor, first of all, I just want to thank the 16 new police assistants. I think that's something that's really needed within the city to make sure that the police officers are out there and responding to those response times that we have out there. Also, the 22 park rangers is something that we've been advocating for years, and to finally see it on the budget, that's great. And thank you for all those advocates that have been advocating for it for years and coming to the Parks Subcommittee and letting us know how important it is to have those park rangers out there. I've been hearing a lot of concerns about the whole enforcement on the light rail, and something about, I don't see that right now in the budget, but how can we actually get some more officers or maybe even some security guards or so to actually enforce the fees on the light rail, that we're seeing a lot of individuals that are jumping on and being transported across our city and other cities and being kicked off at different areas. And then the other thing is, I just want to thank you all for just listening. And the idea that Sal was talking about, coming up with a check and cutting down the pension, maybe Jeff, later on, we can talk about that and see what's your ideas on that and how that would actually benefit or not benefit the city of Phoenix. That's an idea that I haven't heard about, but maybe it might work for the city of Phoenix in the future, right? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman Stark.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I want to echo the comments made by Councilman Nowakowski that park rangers are much needed. I was at a neighborhood meeting maybe 2 weeks ago, and that came up as the #1 priority. Obviously, it's a neighborhood that backs up to the Mountain Preserve, but it really is an important issue for them. And I like where we're going, trying to help with the homelessness too. I think that's great that we're going to set aside some money. And lastly, I really think it looks good that Waring's sitting out in the audience. Perfect place for you.
Was that a no?
All right, Councilman Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. I am delighted that we're going to have more park rangers. I am hoping that this will really have an impact and reduce the number of rescues that we see almost every single day. It's just been a horrendous, I think, burden, and I am always concerned on fire and police who have to go and actually physically remove those people. I'm so fearful that they're going to get hurt from somebody else's lack of experience or poor judgment. So I am very pleased with that. But I did want to make a comment back to Councilman Nowakowski on the security on the light rail. The RPTA at our last meeting just expanded the contract for additional officers, off-duty police, as well as beefing up the online private security we do by over $2 million. So you're going to see a big improvement in security on the light rail. So, and it doesn't have to come from our budget. That's the good news.
That's what I like.
Thank you very much. No further comments. Obviously, we're going to have some busy budget hearings. I think there was 20 or so, I forget the number, but a huge number of budget hearings, and then we'll be back with those proposed changes, and then subsequent to that, we'll take the final vote of the city council. With that, our meeting is adjourned.